Now, I've never been high before in my lifetime, but I'm going to go ahead and put this warning out there. Please, for the love of God, don't be tripping balls when you watch this movie. Without Name. So Without Name is about a guy who goes out to do some kind of geographical study, and he goes to this town that he doesn't know, and he knows it seems a little off where he is. The woods seem a little ominous, and he doesn't have any clue of a background story. So when he starts to get filled in, things start to get a little more creepy for him. And now, it's hard to give you an explanation for this movie without getting into spoilers, which I don't like, but just hear me out here. The dialogue is kept to a minimum in this movie, at least for the very first part of it. There's a lot more pictures, and although the pictures are beautiful, this movie is very well shot. That dialogue and the lack thereof was a problem for me. Now, there are some movies like we just mentioned on the podcast last week, The Bad Batch. That movie is very sufficient in painting you pictures and giving you exact knowledge of what's going on solely through the pictures, for the most part. This movie, I feel, they went for the same thing, but they didn't succeed as much as The Bad Batch did. I felt like this movie tried to be a lot more artsy than what was needed, and that artsiness took away from some of the storyline. A lot of the problems with these movies when there's no dialogue and it's all video, it's all pictures that you're seeing, you get bored, and sometimes they seem drawn on. And this movie really, so I was trying to play through the beginning part, through like the first hour of the movie. I was like, is this as drawn on? Is it as just elongated as I'm feeling it actually is? Or am I just like, all right, I could use some kind of dialogue, I can use some kind of human interaction here. And the further and further I got, I was like, no, I'm justified. This shit is just long. They have these really long, drawn-out scenes for not a whole lot of reasons. It's like him sitting at the side of the bed, like, buh, for like 30 seconds. Or it's like him making a coffee and just stirring it, like 30 seconds. It's like, fucking, all right, come on, we get the picture. Let's move on to something new. So you're 25 minutes in at this point, and they start to give you a clue of what may be going on, what may happen later on in the movie. The problem with this is, it's 25 minutes, that seems fair. That's a good starting point. Like, boom, you got some setup, you got, now you're getting on to the nitty gritty shit. The problem at this point was I was starving for something because the first 25 minutes of the movie were boring as shit to me. I was starving. And they said, yeah, a guy went out into the woods there and he went crazy. And then they just fuck off at that point. They don't mention anything else. It's guy went out into the woods, he got crazy, and then back to the boring shit. Fuck that, I am starving, and you handed me just like a nibble of a french fry. Fuck that, feed me. Give me something at this point. You had successfully, I was waiting, I was anticipating something. I am now starving, and you gave me nothing. And now, it's crazy to say because this is a little bit over an hour and a half long movie, but that beginning, I feel 20 to 30 minutes of this movie is really the downfall when it really all started to break for me. Now, you're going to say, how is 20 to 30 minutes of a movie going to completely ruin it for you? Well, to give you guys my perspective here, my reviews sit anywhere between 6 to 10 minutes. If I sat here for a minute of silence in those 6 to 10 minutes, you guys would lose your fucking mind. You would check out. You would get the hell out of here. No way you would just sit here and watch me do nothing. I'm going to sit here. I'm going to figure out my taxes and maybe draw a little doodle for you guys. Complete silence. Nothing going on. You guys would check the fuck out. Perspectively, that's how this is. That first 15 to half an hour of this movie is nothing. You could have cut out almost all of that. Now, they tried to set up some inner family turmoil from the very beginning of this movie. They also didn't successfully do that, in my opinion, because they did it with no dialogue. They tried to set it up with blank stares and discontent faces. Well, you would get that same blank stare and discontent face from me, like if we were sitting at a dinner table and you sat there and you chomped on your food with your mouth open, you fucking animal. You would get the same face. I didn't get the emotion. They didn't convey that emotion on me that they were trying to get. So that inner family turmoil just fell by the wayside to me. Now, I mentioned the longevity of some of these scenes. And there was one part I was like, that's it. That's point on my problem with the longevity of these scenes. I timed it out. There is a minute and 32 seconds of a slow, almost black. It looks like they cropped it out. You're looking at them through a doorway. The other side of the doorway that he's in is nice and bright, and the side we're on is black. And it's a slow minute 32 pan into darkness and complete silence again. I was like, that, when you think minute 32 seconds, you're like, all right, that's not that long. Until you're sitting there for a minute and 32 seconds watching nothing. It is so long. And my final problem for, I'm going to say a few good things about this movie. I guess the overall antagonist of this movie is just a dude in like one of the full body blackout suits. You know what I'm talking about? Like they make them in all different colors, but you know, head to toe blackout suit. And like I think it's like mesh, so you can see through it a little bit, but that's all it is a dude in like a blackout suit standing in the woods. From what I understood of the story, it sounded like the woods would have been the best antagonist for this movie. The woods make people go crazy. I would have loved to see some gnarly ass ominous tree out in the woods. You know, I don't want it to move. I think that would get a little too silly, but you could have perfectly pulled off somehow this tree. You just saw this gnarly ass tree that all is like, and it looks all weird and shit. No, you gave me a dude in a blackout suit. Fuck, even the trees from the Evil Dead were raping people and shit. Now, these are two movies on the opposite side of the spectrum where I do love the Evil Dead. It went after some shock factor and some crazy special effects. This movie isn't going for that. I don't think you could have had tree rape in this movie. It would have felt out of picture. But still, they did something with the woods, which was ultimately the enemy, kind of. But you get what I'm saying here. Alright, so I've sat here and I've busted its balls thus far, and I'm going to say some good things about it now. The camera work, your overall cinematography in this movie is great. You picked a great scene. You went out into the woods. The woods were creepy. The house was creepy. The people were creepy. There's not a whole lot of characters in this movie, but they seem to overall fit that role, the role that they were meant to fit. The one dude, when it goes to his acting, everybody did a really good job. The one dude seemed a little off, but it was also how his character was written, so I can't bust his balls and say that guy was a little fruity, but he did what his character was supposed to do. So the acting's great, your scenery's great, and although I've busted its balls thus far, you guys went out and you tried to do something that's not done over and over and over and over and over again. So, I liked what you went for. The execution is a problem for me, but I appreciate that you went out and you tried to get this dark psychological thriller shit going, and I appreciated that. So, my final thoughts. I feel like deep down within its core, this is a beautifully shot movie, seething in dark psychological thriller aspects, but it's cocooned in prolonged, drawn out, poor execution. And somewhere in there with the elongated scenes and the ever-growing complexity of the plot, you lost me somewhere. Now, it's not a movie for me, but I'm going to tell you, I have a feeling, as many people as I could find that will agree with me and say, nah, we'll skip this movie, there's going to be just as many people that were like, that movie's fucking awesome, and that fat motherfucker from Modern Horrors doesn't know what he's talking about. So, it's not a movie for me. If you find yourself agreeing with my general ideas on movies, I think you're also going to be able to agree with me on this one. But I promise you, there's going to be just as many people that love this movie that disliked it. So, ultimately, you guys are going to have to decide for yourself. Not for me, could be for you. It's a little trippy. I gave you that warning at the beginning. There is some techno rave Caesar-inducing bullshit scenes in here, so be prepared for that. But other than that, guys, check it out for yourself. Not for me, maybe for you. If you enjoyed this review, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. It makes me feel warm and fuzzy inside, and I don't get that very often. If you guys want to have me review a certain movie, just comment down below. I read all your guys' comments, so if there's something you guys want from me, just let me know. Also, don't forget to go over to modernhorrors.com where you can see more reviews and interviews with actors and all the good shit that we do there. So, until next week, guys, I will see you later.